Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, leaders recognizing leaders. Good afternoon, everyone who is joining us from locally. I'm here in Washington, D.C., so if you're local, hello. If you're not in Washington, D.C., hello. Thank you so much for joining us on inside of the Briefcase of Juris Prudence. So very excited to bring back this live series. As you know, my name is Jotaka Childress, and I'll give an introduction in just a few minutes. We have a very exciting and inspirational episode for you this afternoon. I am very much looking forward to getting started. We have lots of awesome information and words of encouragement to give you from a special guest today, and her name is Jotaka Eaddy. So in just a few minutes, we're going to start our session. So please, if you're logging in, let us know where you're logging in from today. Leaders recognizing leaders, where are you logging in from today? I see Luis. Hello, Luis. How are you? Allison, how are you? Thank you so much for logging in. We have just such an exciting episode today. We'll be joined in just a few minutes by Jotaka Eaddy, and I will read her impressive bio in a few minutes. I'm really excited to bring back this episode, or to bring back this series. Juris Prudence is near and dear to my heart. Juris Prudence, who is she? She's an 11-year-old lawyer who lives in my neighborhood in Washington, D.C., and she takes on cases that represent kids. So Juris Prudence, if you've been following our page for a while, you know that she is a fictional 11-year-old lawyer who lives in D.C. Her first case is fighting for the right to get kids, or fighting to get kids the right to vote. And so Juris Prudence, she is a change maker. The goal in bringing you the Juris Prudence, the inside of the Briefcase Juris Prudence series, is to give kids positive images to look up to. So Jotaka Eaddy is just an amazing individual, and I see she has joined us. She'll be joining the live in just a few minutes. Jotaka, if you could request to join the live, we'll bring you up. Let's see. Jotaka is in the room, and so she is going to be joining the live in just a minute. Here we go. I see your request. Thank you so much, Veronica, who just joined as well. I see my beautiful line sister, Jotaka Eaddy. Welcome, Jotaka. Thank you.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm excited to be with you. Always excited to see you, but like just to have this conversation, I'm like more excited.
I am very excited. This is we had this plan last year, and a tragedy happened, and Jotaka wasn't able to join us. You weren't able to join us, and we pushed this back. And I just know how busy you are, and I know that you could be anywhere in the entire world, literally. I don't know where you are logging in from today, but you are here with us, and I'm just so grateful. I see we have my line sister.
I see Xavier. I see Felicia. I see one of our sisters in the Divine Nine, Jessica Johnson Cope, who is a dynamic sister in the Divine Nine. She's one of our AKA sisters, but she's a dynamic businesswoman. Hey sis, how are you?
Well, thank you everyone who's joined. There's just going to be so much energy in this room. As you know, if you know Jotaka, you know she is a change maker, and I'm going to read her impressive bio because it needs to be read. We need to give this sister her flowers right now because she is just absolutely impressive. As I was mentioning earlier, the purpose of Inside of the Briefcase of Juris Prudence is to bring positive images of Black women to girls everywhere. So especially girls of color, especially Black girls. As a girl growing up, in Jotaka, I will ask you more about the kids who inspired you, the women who inspired you growing up. But it's so important to have positive images to look up to. We have lots of things that we are fighting for as Black women in the community, lots of special challenges. that create and require courage, or that require courage. And that's what it means to me to be a change maker. It means advocating even when it's scary, pushing for things that are scary, speaking up and bringing your chair. I don't know if you can see my Shirley Chisholm chair on my lapel here, but really bringing that chair to the table, or bringing your own chair to the table when you don't have a seat. So that's what Juris P. Prudence is about. That's the character she is. And I just thank you for being that real life character that kids can look up to, that Black girls can look up to. So let me, without further ado, I've been talking about Jotaka's bio for the longest time. I wanted to read you Jotaka L. Eaddy's biography. Jotaka is the founder and CEO of Full Circle Strategies, LLC, a social impact consulting firm committed to advancing transformative change and global impact. Jotaka is the co-host of the award-winning OWN, and that's Oprah Winfrey Network, television series Speak Sis. Described as the Olivia Pope of Silicon Valley by Forbes magazine, Jotaka is dedicated. She's a dedicated and seasoned strategist with more than 20 years of experience in policy, advocacy, and movement building. Jotaka has served at the forefront of efforts that have created lasting change. In 2020, she founded the incredible movement, #WinWithBlackWomen, an intergenerational, intersectional group of Black women leaders representing business, sports, movement, politics, entertainment, and beyond. And I can attest, these are some powerful women. Every Sunday, Jotaka has been diligent and consistent in bringing these women together and being the backbone of policy in the United States, and policy that severely impacts Black women. And so I can just say this is a powerful group, #WinWithBlackWomen. Eaddy is the recipient of several honors and awards, including the 2020 BET Election All-Stars, Good Morning America 2020 History Makers, San Francisco Times, Bay Area Most Influential Women in Business, 40 Under 40 Silicon Valley Tech Diversity, Rainbow Push Outstanding Public Service Award, Route 100 Most Influential African Americans, Essence Magazine Woman to Watch, among others. Jotaka's work has been highlighted in several publications, including Forbes Magazine, TechCrunch Incorporated, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, The Guardian, Essence Magazine, Fortune Magazine, Black Enterprise Magazine, Route 100 Most Influential African Americans, Politics365.com, MSNBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, America, Aspire Network, Huffington Post, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, BET, The Nation Magazine, Democracy Now!, The Art of Activism, BlackAmericaWeb.com, The American Prospect, among others. As you can see, Jotaka Eaddy is a force to be reckoned with, absolutely on the A-list, and I am just so very excited to have her today. You are just a true inspiration. I'm so just honored that you were my line sister, and just, again, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, well, first of all, sis, thank you so much for just that introduction, and back at you. I mean, you are just inspiring. I'm just following Miss Jurisprudence and just everything that is happening, the books, just the power of what you're doing for young Black girls who want to see themselves not only in just the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of the legal world. So right back at you, sister. I truly believe in the notion that iron sharpens iron. That's how the saying goes. So right back at you.
I believe that too, sis. And we have a mutual admiration club. So let's just continue to inspire. Let's build up the next generation. And in that vein, in that spirit, tell me, what was Jotaka Eaddy like as a little girl? Who were you as a little girl?
You know what? So interestingly, I was looking at recently, I was home and I grew up in rural South Carolina, and I always say this. I think people probably know I'm going to at some point mention that I grew up on a dirt road. I say it all the time because I'm just really proud of where I'm from. I actually see someone on here, Proven PJ Jones, that's joined us, who actually went to kindergarten with. So I'm from a small town, Johnsonville. We have population about 1,491 people. And I grew up on a dirt road. And so it's a place, if you ever was to visit Johnsonville, it's a town with one red light. We have two red lights now, but growing up, we had one red light. We got a McDonald's in 1995. And the most happening thing in Johnsonville right now is the fact that we have like a brand new Dollar General. It's a place with a lot of love, but also a place where a lot of the hardworking people in the community didn't necessarily have a much as it related to sort of economic resources, but had a lot of love and a lot of grit and a lot of passion for community. And so I was able to grow up in an environment filled with love and support. And so that really had a big impact on me. But as a child, I was really that person that was extremely curious about life. And at a very early age, I knew I wanted to be an activist. I used to want to be a lawyer. So interestingly, like I used to say I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer as early as kindergarten, I believe. I said I wanted to be a lawyer. I couldn't even say lawyer right. I would say lawyer. But I also was the kid that got on my report card, talks too much. Every single report card from first grade all the way, even to when I was in high school, it's like Jotaka's talking is a little excessive. But I was just a kid that just was curious. I, loved to give Easter speeches and do things like that. I was very active in my church. And I just was a very friendly kid. So I was the kid that at a very early age, I knew I liked and loved people and just always wanted to be around and build community.
Wonderful. So you've always been using your voice, whether that is, I think we have to, in school, always think, is talking too much a bad thing? But I think being a voice at an early age is important. It's important to use your voice and use it for good. So you've always used your voice, whether that was at church, whether that may have been in the classroom, you were always speaking up.
Yeah, I really was. I think my earliest level of activism came because in Johnsonville, South Carolina, we have a local manufacturing plant. And the workers at that plant went on strike when it was in elementary school and very, very young. And most of the workers at that plant, are either members of my family or they went to my church or them. And Reverend Jesse Jackson came to Johnsonville during that time. So if you can imagine Reverend Jesse Jackson coming to a town, population 1,491 people, everything stopped. And for me, it was just magical to just see the organizing. And so I remember at a very early age when the workers were on strike, being a kid out there and like when they were packing lunches and waters at the church to help the people who were on strike, it was a really big deal. I just remember just being electrified by that and really wanting to be a part of that. Like I remember seeing Reverend Jesse Jackson speak at my high school football field. I remember what he had on. I remember him saying, I am somebody, and just sort of looking and saying like, I know I want to do that. And so like that was probably one of the earliest moments that I remember using my voice. And I also remember, I think probably my first kind of campaign for like change. I was in high school and I remember, this is a silly thing, but I remember the bathroom mirrors were not real glass. And I think it was probably a protection not to have like real glass, but it was like a plexiglass. Okay. And I remember that I would be so annoyed that I couldn't really see myself in the mirror because it was fuzzy. So I remember I went on a campaign to get the mirrors changed in the bathroom to be glass mirrors so that we can properly see ourselves. And so, I just sort of kind of think back on like, back when I was like in middle school or elementary school, and definitely in middle school, that's when I became very aware of the death penalty system and grew my opposition to the death penalty, and sort of in middle school and high school started student organizing and advocacy against the death penalty. So throughout just like elementary and middle in high school, I always was just sort of organizing, whether it was sort of more like a student government type organizing or community organizing in the community and advocacy as it related to issues that I was concerned with.
Awesome. I think there's so many pivotal moments that I've heard about as you talk about your upbringing, the dirt road. I think it's always so important to remember, where you started and perhaps what motivates you to push forward now. In meeting Jesse Jackson and the death penalty, let me ask you this, in terms of the courage that it took as a young person, because now we're older, we have experienced life and perhaps have gained more courage, but as a more courage to advocate for things that are challenging in our communities, in our worlds. As a young person, where did you find that courage to speak up when opinions, it wasn't always the popular opinion, the mirrors in the bathroom, the death penalty, huge, global issue? Where did you find internally, where did you find that courage?
I don't think I knew back then what it was, but I definitely know now back then it was the God in me. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm a spiritual woman. I know now back then it was the prayers of those that came before me. And really it was seeing strong Black women around me. My mother, my grandmothers, the women of my church, to see them give voice, to see them leading, whether it was in the church or whether it was in the community, that was really important to me. And my parents, especially when I was in elementary school, there was testing for the gifted and talented program. And I remember very vividly, and I don't remember all the details, but I remember that for some reason I was excluded. And I was excluded out of that program. And my parents spoke up and was like, this is not right. And so, years later now, I understand that, it was a situation where none of the Black kids got into the program. And my parents were like, we are not going to allow this to happen. And my parents took this issue all the way up to the school district. And remembering and seeing my parents fight for me gave me the inspiration to not only to honor that fight, but also for me to fight for myself and just to use my voice. Because, at the time, some of the things that I was advocating, especially when I was in 7th grade and 8th grade, running around talking about we need to abolish the death penalty in like a place like, first of all, my friends were like, why are you talking about something like this? And second, it was not necessarily popular because at the same time, Johnsonville was also the home of a notorious serial killer. So like the issue of the death penalty was something that we talked a lot about in our community. And so it was not the popular opinion. But after I had read something about it, and I was like, we need to be on fire. We need to organize against the death penalty. So my friends are kind of like, girl, you just need to go chill with that. Or me being sort of the student body, like the student government person, like, saying, oh, we need to organize this and we need to do that. For me, I just got very passionate about it. But I think it's just important for us to speak truth to power, to own our voice, and to speak even if it's uncomfortable and or not popular.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a golden nugget. And I think we can all, no matter what age you are, you can take that piece of advice, speaking truth to power, even when it's unpopular, even when it's scary. That's a nugget that I'm taking away right now. I need to write it down, but that's absolutely golden. I'd like to ask you if there was a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old who's in middle school dealing with societal pressures, whether that's self-image pressure, whether that is being afraid to take on a new challenge like the ones that you took on when you were in middle school. What encouragement would you give to that 10 or 11-year-old, or even if you were talking to your 10 or 11-year-old self, what encouragement would you give that little sister to say, no, little sister, you keep going? What words would you give that sister to go ahead and tackle that challenge?
Well, I think the words that I would use are words that I have to remind myself sometimes, and I often share them, that you are enough. You are absolutely enough, because the world often will reinforce this idea that we are not enough, that we are not, and I say this very often, that we are not fill in the blank enough. And I would just say to that young girl that is listening, or that young girl that is questioning, that you are indeed enough. It doesn't mean that you don't have room to grow or room to evolve, but you absolutely are enough, and you are never a deficit. You are always whole.
Wow. That's powerful, Jotaka. That is, I mean, that's a word that we can all take, and I knew that you would be bringing that word today. I think we can all absolutely, I see Autumn Childress TV has joined. That's absolutely a word that we can take and really move with, because we can often think that the world, that we're not enough, right? And these are big, big challenges that we're facing. We have a nominee that is coming out for the Supreme Court, who will be the first Black woman confirmed to the Supreme Court. We're going to just claim that. And these are big, I mean, these are historic, monumental movements that you've been behind. Can you explain just what keeps you going? What keeps you having the energy to take on these large scale, monumental issues? What encourages you? Who motivates you? What forces?
It goes back to that dirt road, and it goes back to Johnsonville. The first opportunity that I ever had to go to a national conference in Washington, D.C., it was $3,000. And it cost $3,000 extra that my parents didn't have. And my entire community, those same people that was striking and on strike years and years ago when I was in elementary school, that worked at this plant, a lot of people who had never even themselves been on an airplane, still haven't been on an airplane, wanted to see me make it to that conference, because they believed that there was something in me that I could achieve something greater. And so those people, that community, they raised money. They gave me what little they might have had. They baked cakes. They did all of this to raise the money to send me. And over and over and over again, every time I had an opportunity, that community invested in me. Those people invested in me. And so for me, every single day when I wake up, it is important for me to honor their investment in my life. It's so important to me. Like, if I was a startup, I've spent time in business in Silicon Valley. And one thing that I learned in business, sitting, in the C-suite and in the boardroom, is that your investors are incredibly important. And for me, those are my investors, that I try to honor my seed investors in my life, those that poured into me. And so for me, I asked the question, like, am I living, am I doing, am I honoring them? Am I working in a manner so that I take people much like them, hardworking people who deserve the dignity and respect of anybody in this country, who are often pushed to the margins? Am I working to ensure that people like them and those people are put back into the center? And so that's what gives me the motivation every day. It is those people. It is the people that come from my hometown, or people like them, and the people who have constantly poured into me, because I am forever. And their sacrifice.
Jotaka, I think we're having a bit of a technical difficulty. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. The last part cut out, but I took the investment of South Carolina, your community who invested in you, and I think that that's the most. I never thought about your initial investors. You know, we've been in the startup world. You think about investors that you get on a day-to-day level, but your first investors, your grandparents, your church, your parents. You know, I see your mom on When Would Black Women Cause, and it just warms my heart to see the support that people continue to believe, and you are taking on these huge missions, these, as I mentioned earlier, these monumental movements. Voting rights, I mean, voting rights. We have the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and we're still fighting for voting rights, and you are pushing, you're moving the needle, you're pushing a boulder. And I think that those investors, when you think back, people who believed and sending you to a conference from day one, you're making them proud. You're being a change maker through your continued diligent action. So I think that that is absolutely phenomenal. And I know if you're inspired today, just put a clap in the comments box, put the praise hands, whichever, just a heart. Let's give Jotaka some love. Jotaka, let me ask you this. What are you working on now? What is the biggest change making? And I think I know the answer. I might know the answer, so I won't spoil it. In your words, what is the biggest change making event that you are currently working on? The most impactful thing that you see as this is what this is my legacy now. This is the most making
Oh,
thing
wow.
now that I'm
Wow, that's a great question. I'm working on a number of things. And one of the things that right now directly in front of me, I'm really honored to be working in coalition with a number of Black women, including yourself and many that are, watching, that have joined this IG Live, to help usher in an historic nomination and confirmation of the first Black woman to sit as the United States Supreme Court Justice in this country. So that's something that, I'm waking up, I'm thinking about, I'm working on every single day. It's important to me as someone who spent the very first part of my career going in and out of death rows, working on death penalty cases. The very early part of my career, I led strategy and international lobby and advocacy efforts around a U.S. Supreme Court case that ultimately became a landmark Supreme Court case, Roper v. Simmons, that abolished the juvenile death penalty. And the U.S. Supreme Court was so vital in that. And Justice Kennedy, in his opinion, writing about the importance of the United States and our evolving standards of decency. And that was, in my 20s and the early part of my career. And then I thought, like, this is, and often I think when I ask myself, what's the most important thing I ever did in my life? And it was, I often say, well, it was the work that I did to abolish the juvenile death penalty. And then I also think about, the work around voting rights, the work while at the NAACP to help change the state constitution in the state of Delaware to give voting rights back to people with felony convictions, or the work to help early on in Iowa and in Virginia, governors to put forth executive orders to automatically restore voting rights to upward to 300,000 people. And just sort of the early work in 2010 and 11 around that. Again, the through line and the thread line has been the courts and the Supreme Court. We all both know about the tragedy of Shelby County versus Holder and what that did to really decimate and to really set back voting rights by gutting, key provisions of the 1965 Voting Rights Act with this invalidation of Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. The courts was extremely important. And so now to be in a position to help, write what I believe, and I think a lot of Americans would agree, and certainly President Joe Biden, is that we need representation on the Supreme Court. That for 233 years, we've had a Supreme Court and it has never had a Black woman to sit on the highest court of the land. That we've had 115 justices, and not ever a Black woman justice. And that it is important not only for the representation, but for the analysis and the lived experience to have that legal analysis and worldview sitting on the highest court of the land, not to mention the contributions that Black women have and continue to make in this country. You know, we know that we're the most highest demographic voting bloc in this country, that we're the most educated demographic in this country, and that we represent some of the most monumental cultural shaping moments, are led by Black women, but yet we have such lack of representation. So for me, it's just incredibly important, not only historically because of the issues that will come before the court, but what it means for this moment for Black women. And to witness that in my lifetime, or to know that I am poised to witness that, while also having just witnessed and, playing some small role, but to witness the inauguration of the first Black woman vice president in the United States, to be, for me, it's like a special time to be a Black woman, and to stand on the shoulders of all the Black women that have done the work and paved the way for us to actually realize this moment.
No, I totally agree. And I think, you have identified and been a part of so many important and critical moments in the course of our country. President Obama, worked with the NAACP, bringing in President Obama, ushering in Kamala Harris. And now for me as a lawyer, as a Black woman lawyer, never seeing, when you see the images of the Supreme Court, never seeing a Black woman, not knowing if in my lifetime I ever would, and to be this close and to know someone who is pushing and bringing hundreds of women together to make sure that we have representation on the high court. It's powerful. And I'm so, every time I have the opportunity to express gratitude to you for being a part of this moment, for helping to bring together people who are interested and whose work depends on having representation, whose, your legacy is in this moment. And I just absolutely appreciate you. And I thank you for identifying this key moment in our history and being a part of it and helping to shape it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing, too. I'm a firm believer it's going to take all of us, every last one of us, not just Black women. We're going to need everybody. We're going to need Black women, our brothers and sisters in the Latinx community, in every single community, our brothers, just all of America who cares about representation and justice and democracy. We're going to need everybody to stand with us in this moment.
Definitely. Well, we are ending we're a little bit past our half-hour mark, and I know that you have lots on your plate, and we have a Supreme Court justice to get into the high court. So I want to just ask you to leave any words of encouragement to our young viewers. I know that you said you are enough, sis. Any other words that you can share as we part, just to give encouragement to our young girl viewers who want to be the next Jotaka Eaddy? What would you say to them? What should they do?
You know what? I would say to that young girl, that young person that's watching, that, there is a need for whatever that magic that you have, that you do indeed have magic. And it's your magic, it's your secret sauce, your pixie dust. And it's important for you to know that the world needs those sprinkles and not to be afraid to just sprinkle away. And just to remind, every young girl that there's an absolute need for them in the world at every single table that exists in this world.
Well, with that, Miss Eaddy, I'm going to say we're going to go out here, sprinkle your pixie dust out here.
Sprinkle away.
I hope that everyone wrote that down. Sprinkle your pixie dust. Have a little bit of it at your desk and just sprinkle it all around as you are working, because you are absolutely spreading magic wherever you're listening from today. I hope that you've taken lots of notes, whether you wrote Jotaka's words down on a piece of paper on your device or kept those notes mentally. Jotaka has dropped so many gems today. And I just thank you, sis, so very, very much. Let us know how we can keep up with you. Where can we follow you on social media? What hashtags should we follow? Let us know how to stay in touch with you.
Well, you can follow me. I'm on all platforms at Jotaka Eaddy. I have a very unique name, so there's just one Jotaka Eaddy in the world. So it's at Jotaka, Jotaka Eaddy. You can also follow hashtag Win with Black Women, hashtag She Will Rise, hashtag Sister Justice. In this moment right now, follow all the hashtags that anything to do with what's happening right now as it relates to the U.S. Supreme Court, other organizations, hashtag, Black Women Lead, all of those hashtags I would encourage you to follow and uplift. So thank you, sis, so much. This has been wonderful. I'm just glad we were able to make this happen. I know it was a tragedy last time and I wasn't able to join. But I'm just so glad we were able to have this. And actually it worked out for it to be this moment in time so that we could have that important conversation about this historic moment as it relates to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. All things work together. So I very much thank you for your time. I hope to see you very, very soon. Just sending you my love virtually. And thank you to all of our viewers today who tuned in to this special conversation. Everybody go out there. Please follow Jotaka and please join us for our next Instagram Live inside the Briefcase of Juris Prudence, where we will have a special attorney who's near and dear to my heart. We'll be releasing information about our next session very soon. But thank you so very much, Jotaka.
Thank you, everybody. And special shout out to the 78 Forces of Fortitude in the Federal City Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I got to give a special shout out to the 78 Forces of Fortitude, always.
Absolutely. 78 Forces of Fortitude. We love you. So many of our line sisters joined the call. Thank you so very much. I'm going to wave to Shayna. I see Melissa. Thank you, everybody. I see Ivy. Thank you so much, everyone who joined.
Alicia. We're going to call the roll.
We are. Roll call.
Candace with a K.
Forces of Fortitude. Candace with a K. Allison.
Oh, Allison. I love it.
Oh, I love you too.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.